Before we dive into these 8 deeply disturbing encounters that will make you question everything you thought you knew about safety and normalcy, I need you to do something for me right now. Hit that subscribe button and smash the like, because what you're about to hear will challenge every assumption you have about the people around you and the spaces you think are safe. Trust me, you'll want to be part of this community when these stories start keeping you up at night. Sarah Mitchell thought she had found the perfect apartment in downtown Seattle. The rent was reasonable, the location was ideal for her new job at a tech startup, and the landlord seemed friendly enough during the walkthrough. She signed the lease in October, excited to finally have her own space after years of living with roommates. The first week was unremarkable. She unpacked her belongings, arranged her furniture, and settled into a routine that felt comfortable and familiar. But on the 8th night, something shifted. Sarah was getting ready for bed when she noticed a tiny red light blinking from the smoke detector above her bedroom door. It was faint, almost imperceptible, but once she saw it, she couldn't unsee it. She grabbed a chair and climbed up to inspect it more closely. Her hands trembled as she twisted the smoke detector cover. What she found inside made her blood run cold. Nestled next to the actual smoke detection mechanism was a small camera, its lens pointed directly at her bed. Pause. The discovery sent waves of nausea through her body. How long had it been there? Who was watching? What had they seen? Sarah's mind raced through every private moment she had experienced in that room over the past week. She had changed clothes there. She had walked around in her underwear. She had done things she would never want anyone to see. Her hands shaking, she carefully removed the camera and placed it in a plastic bag. Then she began searching. What she found over the next 2 hours would haunt her for years to come. There was another camera hidden in the bathroom vent, positioned to capture the shower. There was one in the living room, disguised as a phone charger plugged into the wall. There was even one in the kitchen, built into what looked like a normal electrical outlet. 4 cameras total. 4 violations of her privacy, 4 windows into her most vulnerable moments. Sarah called the police immediately. The investigation revealed that her landlord, a 47-year-old man named Robert Chen, had installed cameras in over a dozen apartments he managed across the city. He had been watching his tenants, mostly young women living alone, for nearly 3 years. The police found thousands of hours of footage on his computer, meticulously organized by apartment number and tenant name. Some videos had been uploaded to dark web forums. Others had been sold. The case made national news. Robert Chen was arrested and eventually sentenced to 15 years in prison. But for Sarah, the damage was done. She moved out immediately, breaking her lease and losing her security deposit. She couldn't sleep for months without checking every corner of every room for hidden cameras. She covered her laptop camera with tape. She unplugged electronics when not in use. The sense of violation never fully went away. What started as an exciting new chapter in her life, a fresh start in a new city, had become a nightmare that reshaped her entire relationship with privacy and trust. If this story is already making you uncomfortable, then you understand why you need to stay until the end. Hit that like button right now, because these encounters only get more disturbing from here, and you need to hear what happened next in story number 2. Marcus Davidson was a successful real estate agent in Austin, Texas. He lived alone in a modest 2-bedroom house on the east side of town, a place he had purchased 3 years earlier as his first major investment. Marcus was methodical about his routine. He woke up at 6 every morning, went for a run, showered, made breakfast, and left for work by 8. He returned home around 7 in the evening, made dinner, watched television, and went to bed by 11. His life was predictable, organized, and entirely his own. Or so he thought. In March, Marcus started noticing small inconsistencies in his home. A cabinet door he remembered closing would be slightly ajar. A chair would be positioned differently than he left it. Food would disappear from his refrigerator faster than he was consuming it. At first, he attributed these changes to his own forgetfulness. He was busy with work, stressed about meeting his quarterly sales targets, and perhaps not paying as much attention to details as he normally would. But then he found the smell. It was coming from the attic, a space Marcus rarely accessed. The entrance was a pull-down ladder in the hallway ceiling, and he couldn't remember the last time he had opened it. The smell was musty and organic, like unwashed clothes mixed with something else he couldn't quite identify. He grabbed a flashlight and climbed up. What he discovered made him question everything about his sense of security. Someone had been living in his attic. There was a sleeping bag spread out in the corner, surrounded by empty food containers, water bottles, and trash. There were clothes folded neatly in a makeshift dresser constructed from cardboard boxes. There were books, a portable phone charger, and a battery-operated lantern. Most disturbing of all, there was a notebook filled with detailed observations about Marcus himself. The entries were meticulous. They documented his daily routine down to the minute. They described what he wore, what he ate, what television shows he watched. They included observations about his mood, his phone conversations that could be overheard from the attic, and even speculation about his relationships and personal life. The handwriting was neat and deliberate, the tone analytical and detached. One entry read, "Subject leaves for work at 7:53 a.m., returns at 7:12 p.m., appears stressed, received phone call from mother. Conversation lasted 11 minutes. Discussed upcoming family gathering. Subject reluctant to attend." Another entry, dated 2 weeks later, stated, "Subject has been working longer hours, returns home exhausted. Eating habits have changed, consuming more takeout, less home cooking, possible depression or work-related stress. Opportunity to access main living space increased during extended work hours." Marcus felt his legs go weak. Someone had been watching him, studying him, living above him for weeks or possibly months. He backed down the ladder and immediately called 911. The police arrived within 15 minutes. They searched the attic and collected evidence, including the notebook, DNA samples from the sleeping bag, and fingerprints from the water bottles. They set up surveillance, hoping to catch the intruder when they returned. Marcus stayed at a hotel that night, unable to imagine sleeping in a house where someone had been secretly observing him. 3 days later, the intruder was caught. His name was Jeremy Wallace, a 34-year-old drifter with a history of breaking and entering charges. He had been moving from house to house across Austin, finding properties where he could access attics or basements without being detected. He would study the occupants, learn their routines, and stay until he felt the risk of discovery was too high. Then he would move on to the next house. Jeremy told police he had been in Marcus's attic for 7 weeks. He had been coming and going through a loose attic vent on the side of the house, accessing the property while Marcus was at work. He claimed he meant no harm, that he was simply looking for a place to stay, but the detailed nature of his observations suggested something more sinister. Marcus sold the house 6 months later. He couldn't shake the feeling of being watched even after Jeremy was arrested and sentenced to 3 years in prison. Every creak, every small inconsistency, every unexplained sound made him wonder if someone else might be hiding in the walls or ceiling. The violation of his private space had fundamentally altered his sense of safety. We're just getting started, and if you're feeling unsettled, good. That means you're paying attention. Make sure you're subscribed, because story number 3 involves something that shouldn't be technologically possible, yet it happened. Jennifer Huang was a 29-year-old graphic designer living in San Francisco. She lived alone in a small studio apartment in the Mission District, working freelance and enjoying the independence that came with being self-employed. Jennifer was active on social media, maintaining professional profiles on LinkedIn and Instagram, where she showcased her design work and connected with potential clients. In July, she started receiving text messages from an unknown number. The first message was simple: "I like your new haircut." Jennifer had just gotten her haircut the day before and had posted a photo on Instagram. She assumed the message was from someone who followed her online, perhaps a friend using a new number. She responded with a polite thank you and didn't think much of it, but the messages continued. "That coffee shop you went to this morning makes the best lattes." Jennifer had indeed stopped at a coffee shop that morning, but she hadn't posted about it anywhere. She felt a small flutter of unease, but reasoned that maybe someone she knew had seen her there. "The blue dress looks better than the black one." This message came while Jennifer was shopping at a department store, holding up 2 dresses and trying to decide which to purchase. She spun around, scanning the store for anyone watching her, but saw no one suspicious. Her heart began to race. Pause. "You should be more careful walking home alone at night." This message arrived at 10:45 p.m. as Jennifer was walking the 3 blocks from the bus stop to her apartment. She broke into a run, her keys clutched between her fingers, and didn't stop until she was inside her building with the door locked behind her. The messages became more frequent and more specific. They referenced conversations Jennifer had with friends, errands she ran, food she ordered for delivery. They included details that would be impossible to know unless someone was watching her constantly, tracking her movements, listening to her conversations. Jennifer went to the police, but they told her there was little they could do without more concrete evidence of a threat. The messages were disturbing, but not explicitly threatening. They advised her to document everything, change her phone number, and be vigilant about her personal security. She changed her number. The messages stopped for exactly 4 days. Then they started again from a new unknown number, picking up right where they left off as if nothing had changed. "New phone number won't help. I'll always find you." Jennifer became paranoid. She stopped posting on social media entirely. She varied her routine, taking different routes to different places at different times. She installed security cameras in her apartment. She checked for tracking devices on her car and her belongings. She found nothing. Then came the message that broke her. "You wore the pink pajamas last night. They're my favorite." Her bedroom curtains had been closed. Her security cameras showed no one had entered her apartment. Yet someone knew what she had been wearing in the privacy of her own home. The implication was terrifying. Either someone had access to cameras she didn't know about, or they had been inside her apartment at some point and installed their own surveillance. Jennifer moved out immediately. She stayed with friends while searching for a new place, somewhere with better security, somewhere she could feel safe. The messages continued sporadically, always demonstrating knowledge they shouldn't have, always maintaining that same calm, observant tone that made her skin crawl. The case remains unsolved. Police investigated her landlord, her ex-boyfriends, her former clients, everyone she could think of who might have reason to stalk her. They found no solid leads. The person sending the messages used burner phones and routing services that made them nearly impossible to trace. Jennifer eventually moved to Portland, Oregon, hoping that distance would end the harassment. For 6 months, she heard nothing. Then, on a rainy Tuesday morning, her phone buzzed with a new message. "Portland suits you. The rain matches your mood." She changed her number again. She's still waiting to see if they'll find her once more. You need to stay with me because story number 4 gets even stranger. Hit that like button if you're still watching, and let me tell you about something that defies logical explanation. David Park was a software engineer working for a major corporation in Chicago. He was rational, analytical, and skeptical of anything that couldn't be explained through science and logic. He didn't believe in ghosts, supernatural phenomena, or conspiracy theories. Everything had an explanation if you looked hard enough. That certainty was shattered in September when he started receiving text messages from his own phone number. The first message arrived while he was sitting at his desk at work, his phone face up beside his keyboard. The notification banner appeared, a text message from his own number. The message read, "Don't go home tonight." David stared at his screen, confused. He opened his messaging app and saw the conversation thread with himself. There was the message, sent from his number to his number. He checked his sent messages folder. Nothing. He hadn't sent himself anything. Yet there it was. He assumed it was some kind of technical glitch, a strange artifact of the cellular network or his phone carrier's systems. He made a mental note to call customer service later and continued working. The second message arrived 3 hours later. "I'm serious. Stay away from the apartment." Now, David was unsettled. This wasn't a random glitch. These were coherent messages with a clear intent. He called his phone carrier's technical support and spent 40 minutes on hold before speaking to a representative who had no explanation for how someone could spoof his exact number to send messages to himself. The third message came as he was leaving work. "If you go home, you'll regret it. Trust yourself." The phrasing was bizarre. Trust yourself. As if the messages were actually coming from him, from some future version of himself warning about something terrible. David was a logical person, but the specificity of the warnings, the insistence, made him hesitate. He decided to grab dinner instead of going straight home. While eating at a small Thai restaurant near his office, he received another message. "Good choice. Wait 2 more hours." David's hands trembled as he held his phone. This was impossible. No one was hacking his device, according to the phone carrier. No one could technically send messages from his exact number to himself, yet it was happening. And the messages seemed to have knowledge of his decisions in real time. He waited. He ordered more food he didn't want, nursed a beer, checked the news on his phone. At 8:30 p.m., 2 hours after arriving at the restaurant, he received a final message. "You can go home now. The danger has passed. You're welcome." David drove home slowly, his mind racing through possibilities. When he arrived at his apartment building, he saw fire trucks and police cars surrounding the entrance. Neighbors were gathered on the sidewalk, some wrapped in blankets, others talking urgently on their phones. A gas leak had occurred in the building. It started around 6:15 p.m., right around the time David would normally arrive home. The building had been evacuated. If someone had struck a match, turned on a stove, or done anything to create a spark, the entire structure could have exploded. The gas company was still working to contain the leak, and residents were being told they couldn't return for at least 24 hours. David stood on the sidewalk, staring at his building, trying to process what had just happened. The messages had warned him. The messages from his own number had known about a gas leak before it happened, or at least before he would have been in danger from it. He checked his phone. No new messages. He scrolled through the conversation with himself, but the messages were gone. The entire thread had disappeared, as if it never existed. He took screenshots earlier when the messages first started arriving, so he had proof they were real. But now, looking at his phone, there was no trace of the conversation. David never received another message from himself. He searched online and found a few other people reporting similar experiences. Messages from their own numbers, warnings about dangers they avoided, and then the evidence disappearing. Some people theorized about time loops or parallel universes trying to communicate. Others suggested advanced hacking techniques or government surveillance programs. No one had a satisfying explanation. David remained skeptical of supernatural explanations, but he couldn't deny what happened. Something or someone had warned him, used his own number to get his attention, and potentially saved his life. He just didn't know what or who, and that uncertainty haunted him more than any ghost story ever could. We're halfway through, and if you're not subscribed yet, you're missing out on more stories like these. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because story number 5 involves a situation that could happen to anyone using rideshare apps. Amanda Price and her 2 friends, Rachel and Jessica, were celebrating Amanda's 30th birthday in Nashville, Tennessee. They had spent the evening bar hopping on Broadway, enjoying live music and cocktails. Around midnight, they decided to call it a night and ordered an Uber to take them back to their hotel. The car that arrived was a silver Honda Accord, matching the description in the app. The license plate matched. The driver's photo matched the person behind the wheel, a man in his 40s with a friendly smile. Amanda sat in the front seat, while Rachel and Jessica climbed into the back. Everything seemed normal. The driver introduced himself as Dale and made small talk as he pulled away from the curb. He asked if they were visiting Nashville, what brought them to town. The typical questions rideshare drivers ask. His demeanor was pleasant and professional. The app showed their route to the hotel, a 15-minute drive through downtown. But after 5 minutes, Amanda noticed they were heading in the wrong direction. She glanced at her phone and saw the route on the app still showed them heading toward the hotel, but the streets outside didn't match. They were leaving the well-lit downtown area and entering a darker, more industrial part of the city. "Excuse me," Amanda said, trying to keep her voice steady. "I think we're going the wrong way." Dale smiled at her. "Just avoiding some traffic. Trust me, I know a better route." But there was no traffic at midnight on a Tuesday. The streets they had been on were empty. Amanda looked back at Rachel and Jessica. They were both staring at their phones, their faces pale with concern. Jessica mouthed, "Wrong way." Amanda's heart began to pound. "Actually, can you just follow the route on the app? We're not in a hurry." Dale's smile didn't waver. "This is faster. Don't worry." They were now driving through an area with warehouses and closed businesses. No pedestrians, no other cars. The streetlights were sparse. Amanda realized with growing horror that they were completely isolated. She looked at the door lock. Engaged. She reached for it, trying to be subtle, but it wouldn't unlock. Child safety locks, she realized. They were trapped. "Let us out," Amanda said, abandoning any pretense of politeness. "Stop the car right now and let us out." Dale's smile finally faded. "We're almost there. Just relax." Rachel and Jessica were now frantically typing on their phones in the back seat, sending their location to friends, posting on social media, doing anything to create a digital trail of where they were. Amanda opened the Uber app and hit the emergency button, which connected her to 911 dispatch. "This is an emergency," Amanda said loudly into her phone. "We're in an Uber and the driver won't let us out. He's taking us somewhere we didn't agree to go. We need help." The dispatcher's voice came through the speaker, calm and professional. "Can you give me your location?" Amanda read the street name from a passing sign. Dale's expression changed. The friendly mask was gone, replaced by something colder. He pulled over abruptly, unlocked the doors, and said, "Get out." They didn't hesitate. All three women scrambled out of the car and ran. Dale drove off quickly, tires squealing. They found themselves in an empty parking lot near a closed furniture warehouse. Amanda stayed on the line with the dispatcher, who sent a police car to their location. The investigation revealed that Dale was using a stolen Uber account. He had somehow gained access to a legitimate driver's credentials and was using the platform to pick up passengers. The real driver, whose account was compromised, had no idea his identity was being used. Dale had a criminal record, including assault and attempted kidnapping charges from another state. Police never found him. He abandoned the Honda Accord in a grocery store parking lot the next day and disappeared. The license plates were stolen. There were no fingerprints that matched anyone in the system. The investigation went cold. Amanda, Rachel, and Jessica were physically unharmed, but the psychological impact lasted for months. Amanda still takes rideshares, but she obsessively checks every detail: the license plate, the driver's face, the route. She sits in the back seat. She shares her trip with multiple friends. She trusts nothing. What started as a birthday celebration, a normal night out that thousands of people experience without incident, became a reminder that danger can wear the most normal disguises. Stay with me, because story number 6 involves a technology that most parents trust completely, and you need to hear what happened. Michael and Lisa Brennan were first-time parents living in suburban Minneapolis. Their daughter, Emma, was 8 months old, and like many modern parents, they had installed a baby monitor in her nursery. The monitor had video capability, night vision, and a smartphone app that allowed them to check on Emma from anywhere in the house. In November, Lisa was downstairs making dinner, while Michael was upstairs giving Emma a bath. Lisa glanced at the baby monitor app on her phone to check on the nursery, even though Emma wasn't in there. What she saw made her drop her phone. The camera was moving, panning slowly from left to right, as if someone was controlling it remotely. Then it stopped, pointing directly at the changing table. And through the phone's speaker, Lisa heard a voice. A male voice, unfamiliar and deeply unsettling, speaking softly. "Where's the baby?" Lisa screamed. She ran upstairs, bursting into the bathroom where Michael was finishing Emma's bath. "Someone's in the monitor," she gasped. "Someone's controlling it. They were talking." They asked where Emma was. Michael wrapped Emma in a towel and handed her to Lisa, then rushed to the nursery. The camera was still now, pointing at the crib. He unplugged it immediately, his hands shaking with anger and fear. They called the police and the monitor's manufacturer. The investigation revealed that their baby monitor, like many internet-connected devices, had been hacked. Someone had gained access to the camera's feed and control functions through a vulnerability in the device's security. The manufacturer admitted that several thousand units had been compromised in a large-scale breach. But it got worse. The hacker, whoever they were, had been watching Emma for weeks. The device kept logs of when the camera was accessed, and the data showed unauthorized connections going back almost a month. Someone had been watching their daughters sleep, watching them care for her, listening to their conversations in the nursery. The police traced the IP address of the hacker to a server in Eastern Europe, but that's where the trail went cold. The hacker was using routing services that made further tracking impossible. They were never caught. Michael and Lisa threw away every internet-connected device in their home. No more smart speakers, no more connected cameras, no more devices that could potentially be compromised. They covered Emma's windows with blackout curtains. They installed a traditional baby monitor, the kind that runs on a closed frequency with no internet connection. But the damage was done. Every time Emma cried at night, every time they heard a sound that seemed out of place, they wondered if someone was still watching somehow. The violation of their daughter's privacy, her vulnerability, was something they couldn't forgive or forget. 6 months later, they received an envelope in the mail with no return address. Inside was a flash drive. Against their better judgment, they had it examined by a computer security expert they hired. The drive contained hundreds of video clips from their baby monitor, time-stamped and organized by date. Someone had been recording everything and decided to send them proof. The expert advised them to turn it over to the FBI, which they did. The investigation is still ongoing. No arrests have been made. Michael and Lisa moved to a different house. They don't talk about what happened except with their therapist. Emma is 2 years old now, happy and unaware of the stranger who watched her during the first year of her life. The trust they had in technology, in the devices designed to keep their child safe, was shattered completely. Make sure you're still subscribed, because story number 7 involves betrayal from someone who should have been trustworthy, and it's a reminder that the people closest to us can be hiding the darkest secrets. Trevor Huang lived with his roommate, Kyle Morrison, in an apartment in Portland, Oregon. They had met through a roommate finding app 2 years earlier and had developed what Trevor thought was a solid friendship. They worked different schedules, Trevor as a day shift nurse and Kyle as a bartender working nights, so they didn't cross paths often, but their arrangement worked well. In August, Trevor started feeling strange. He would come home from work exhausted in ways that didn't match his shift. he would fall asleep earlier than usual and sleep deeply, waking up groggy and disoriented. He attributed it to stress at the hospital where he worked, the long hours and emotional toll of patient care. But then he started losing time. He would remember getting home at 7 p.m., eating dinner, and then nothing until waking up in his bed the next morning. Hours would be missing from his memory. He began to worry he was having some kind of medical issue, perhaps a neurological problem or early onset dementia, despite being only 31 years old. Trevor scheduled an appointment with his doctor and described his symptoms. The doctor ordered blood work and suggested keeping a journal of his meals, sleep patterns, and daily activities to look for patterns. Trevor started the journal, writing down everything he ate, every drink he consumed. One evening, Trevor came home and found Kyle in the kitchen preparing dinner. Kyle had made pasta and offered to share. Trevor accepted, grateful for the gesture. They ate together, chatting about their respective days. Trevor felt fine during the meal, but noted in his journal what he ate: pasta with marinara sauce, garlic bread, and a glass of water Kyle had poured for him. He woke up 14 hours later. It was noon the next day. He had missed his entire shift at the hospital. His phone was filled with missed calls and angry messages from his supervisor. He had no memory of anything after finishing dinner. Trevor knew something was seriously wrong. He collected the glass he had drunk from the night before, which was still on his nightstand, and took it to a friend who worked in a toxicology lab. He asked for a favor: test the glass for any substances that shouldn't be there. The results came back 3 days later. The glass tested positive for benzodiazepines, a class of sedative drugs. Someone had drugged him. Trevor's mind raced. Who had access to his drinks? Who had the opportunity? The horrible realization settled over him. Kyle. Kyle had made dinner. Kyle had poured his water. Kyle was the only person who could have done this. But why? Trevor set up a hidden camera in his bedroom, a small device he ordered online and disguised as a phone charger. He plugged it in and positioned it to capture the entire room. Then he went about his normal routine, eating meals, drinking beverages Kyle prepared, waiting to see what would happen. 2 days later, Trevor came home and Kyle offered him a beer. Trevor accepted, drank half of it, then excused himself to his room, claiming he felt tired. He lay down on his bed, pretending to fall asleep while the camera recorded. What the camera captured over the next 3 hours was beyond Trevor's worst nightmares. 30 minutes after Trevor fell asleep, Kyle entered the room. He checked Trevor's pulse, lifted his eyelids, and seemed satisfied that Trevor was unconscious. Then Kyle began going through Trevor's belongings. He opened drawers, read through personal documents, checked Trevor's wallet and phone. He took photos of Trevor's credit cards, his driver's license, his social security card. But it got worse. Kyle positioned Trevor's body in various poses and took photographs. He touched Trevor in ways that made Trevor's skin crawl when he watched the footage later. Kyle talked to Trevor's unconscious body, saying things like, "You're so easy to control," and "You never suspect anything." The footage showed Kyle doing this for hours before finally leaving the room. Trevor waited until the next day when Kyle was at work, then packed everything he owned and moved out. He went directly to the police with the video evidence. Kyle was arrested the following week. The investigation revealed that Kyle had been drugging Trevor regularly for over 6 months. He had been stealing from him, using his identity to open credit cards, and engaging in what prosecutors called non-consensual exploitation that bordered on sexual assault. Kyle had done this to previous roommates as well. There were at least 4 other victims who came forward once the case became public. Kyle Morrison was sentenced to 12 years in prison. Trevor went through months of therapy trying to process the violation he had experienced, the betrayal from someone he trusted, the knowledge that he had been completely vulnerable and under someone else's control, repeatedly without knowing it. He still has trouble trusting people. He still has trouble sleeping. The psychological scars run deeper than any physical harm could have. We're on the final story, and I need you to stick with me because this one brings everything together in a way that will make you rethink how you move through the world. If you've made it this far, hit that like button one more time and let's finish this. Elena Rodriguez was a substitute teacher in Boston, Massachusetts. She lived alone in a small apartment in Dorchester, maintained a quiet life, and kept to herself. She wasn't particularly active on social media, didn't have many close friends in the city, and preferred her privacy. In October, she received a package at her doorstep. There was no return address, just her name and apartment number written in neat handwriting on the brown paper wrapping. Inside was a notebook, bound in black leather, filled with handwritten entries. Elena opened it curiously, thinking perhaps it had been delivered to the wrong address. What she found inside made her hands start shaking. The notebook was about her. It was a detailed diary of her life, written from the perspective of someone watching her. The entries went back 6 months, starting in April. Each page documented her daily routine with disturbing precision. April 14th. Subject leaves apartment at 7:15 a.m., walks to bus stop on Columbia Road, takes the number 16 bus to Ashmont Station, transfers to Red Line heading inbound, exits at Park Street, walks to Walnut Street Elementary School, substitute teaching assignment, returns home at 4:30 p.m., stops at grocery store, purchases milk, bread, chicken breast, vegetables, returns to apartment, lights in apartment extinguished at 10:45 p.m. May 3rd. Subject's routine disrupted. Receives phone call at 9:30 a.m. Appears distressed after call. Does not leave apartment all day. Orders food delivery at 7 p.m. Chinese food from Golden Dragon Restaurant. Eats while watching television. Cries during movie. Goes to bed early. June 22nd. Subject goes on date. Male companion picks her up at 7 p.m. They go to Italian restaurant on Hanover Street. Conversation appears awkward. Subject returns home alone at 9:45 p.m. Does not see male companion again. Every day was documented. Every habit, every deviation from routine, every private moment that should have been hers alone. The level of detail was staggering. Whoever wrote this had been watching her constantly, tracking her movements, noting her emotional states, recording her life like she was a specimen under observation. The final entry was dated the day before she received the package. Subject has been observed for 183 days. Data collection is complete. Subject should be aware that privacy is an illusion. We are always watching. We are always closer than you think. This is a gift, a reminder that safety is a comfortable lie we tell ourselves. Be more careful, Elena, or don't. It makes no difference to us. Elena called the police immediately. They took the notebook as evidence and began an investigation. They dusted it for fingerprints, but found nothing. They analyzed the handwriting, but couldn't match it to any database. They looked for surveillance footage in her neighborhood, but found no one suspicious, no one who appeared repeatedly, no clear suspect. The investigation went nowhere. Whoever had been watching Elena was meticulous enough to avoid leaving any traceable evidence. They knew how to move through the world invisible, how to observe without being observed. Elena moved to a different city. She changed her name. She got a new phone number, new email address, new social media accounts under fake names. She cut ties with everyone from her old life, afraid that any connection could lead her stalker back to her. She never found out who wrote the diary. She never discovered how they tracked her so completely. The case remains open but inactive, one of dozens of similar reports that police receive but cannot solve. Elena lives in constant awareness now that privacy might be an illusion, that someone might be watching at any moment, that the person sitting next to her on the bus or standing behind her in line at the grocery store might be documenting her existence for reasons she'll never understand. Pause. These 8 stories share a common thread. They all started normally. They all involved people going about their regular lives, trusting that the world operates according to certain rules, that their private spaces are private, that the people around them are who they appear to be, that technology serves them rather than exposing them. And they were all wrong. The question you should be asking yourself now is this: how many of these situations could be happening to you right now without your knowledge? How many hidden cameras might be watching? How many people might be tracking your movements? How many devices in your home might be compromised? How many people in your life might have darker intentions than you realize? The uncomfortable truth is that you don't know. You can't know. We move through the world assuming safety, assuming privacy, assuming that these kinds of encounters are rare anomalies that happen to other people. But they're not. They happen every day. They happen to people who never imagined they would be victims. They happen in ways that are increasingly sophisticated and difficult to detect. So here's what I want you to do. First, go back and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Turn on notifications so you never miss a story like these. Second, leave a comment below telling me which story disturbed you the most and why. Were you more unsettled by the physical violations like the hidden cameras or the psychological violations like the stalking and surveillance? Third, smash that like button to help this video reach more people who need to hear these warnings. And finally, I want you to go check your spaces right now. Look for cameras hidden in smoke detectors or electrical outlets. Check your attic and basement for signs someone might be accessing your home. Review the permissions on your smart devices and change default passwords. Verify that the rideshare driver you're getting into matches their photo exactly. Cover your laptop cameras. Be aware of your surroundings. These aren't paranoid precautions. These are reasonable responses to a world where privacy is under constant assault and danger wears increasingly normal disguises. The people in these stories thought they were safe. They thought they would notice if something was wrong. They were all mistaken, and by the time they realized the truth, the damage was done. Don't let that be your story. Stay vigilant. Stay aware. And remember that the most dangerous encounters are the ones that start normally, the ones where you never see the threat until it's too late. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Stay safe out there.